Hey guys, so today I'll be explaining the newest any % no ace speedrun route for Zelda Ocarina of Time. It's a little complicated and can be overwhelming if viewing for the first time, but I'll make sure to take things one step at a time and slow things down for you during the more complicated techniques. Now first off, it's important to note that this route can only be performed on the Zelda Collector's Edition version of Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo Gamecube, as some techniques are only possible on this version. More on that later. But to start, the first technique that must be performed is actually on the file select screen. As you can see here, the runner has 3 files set up, the first 2 being identical Japanese phrases, which mean no hesitation in English. This is RNG manipulation and will cause the boulder guarding the Kokiri sword to have its cycle reset upon entering the crawl space, allowing the speedrunner to get the sword quicker, as they will be able to get the sword without waiting for the boulder, hence no hesitation. Another such RNG manipulation is the last file name, Banjo, which increases the odds of finding rupees in patches of grass, speeding up the process of getting the shield. The initial opening cutscenes play like normal, but before the player even gets control of Link, they already must be careful about how quickly they close text boxes. As you can see, the runner allows Navi's second text box of 4 to stay open just long enough that the green icon can appear at the bottom. While this may seem like a minor time loss, it actually is immediately rewarded, as when performed on the correct frame, you'll see Navi quickly jolt to the left. The position of her model on screen is what dictates the length of Link's yawn, and this position that she jolts to happens to be the optimal spot for the quickest yawn length. As the player leaves the house, you'll notice that they do a backflip, but continue to walk backwards until they get to the ledge. This is because it's quicker to remain walking backwards, as you lose your momentum if you turn around. After this, he backwalks up until the crawl space. This isn't actually any faster than normal walking though, it's simply more of a swag strat for runners to show off with. After the crawl space, however, it's used to save frames, as the assets behind Link aren't loaded in, saving RAM and resulting in the game having a minor boost in FPS. You'll also notice he runs right past the boulder as the file name RNG manipulation kicks in. The player then gets the sword and leaves the crawl space like normal. The next goal is to collect rupees for the Deku shield and Deku nuts. You'll notice that during this, the runner does a jump slash to clip up onto a bridge and collect 5 rupees. While it doesn't seem like Link will reach, this works due to an exploit known as backwards long jump slashing, or a BLJS for short. By pressing back on the control stick, frame perfectly when Link touches a specific pixel, this will cause Link to jolt up onto the platform. The reason why this works is because it extends Link's hitbox up for a single frame, resulting in the game thinking he is on top of the ledge. After getting exactly 27 rupees, the player enters Mytoes' house to collect more, reaching 38 in total. This will allow the runner to get 50 in total on the way to the Kokiri shop, and an extra 5 once inside the shop. Here it's important that you buy the Deku shield first and the nuts second, as it sets up for the main technique in this run, Separate Reality Manifestation, or SRM for short. In fact, if you buy them in the opposite order, the game will actually crash immediately, so make sure you buy the shield first. Next, the player wants to talk to Myto and get past him so that they can access the short area before the Deku Tree. Here's where things get much more complicated. I won't go over every movement, but I'll show you the exact motions that must be performed to set up the Separate Reality Manifestation technique. Once this is done, the player's controls will then be inverted, and several glitchy properties will occur. Most notably, the camera will be inert. What's most important though is getting back to the crawl space, as it resets the assets in Kokiri Forest, allowing for more of the game's RAM to be manipulated. Once out, the player will notice that Link's movement options have been severely limited and can no longer roll forward. This is a sign that the RAM has been properly manipulated. Next, you want to hit this specific rock, which will cause Link to recoil back, and due to the lack of movement options and previously distorted camera, the camera doesn't know what to do, and defaults to Kokiri Forest's central coordinates, which are facing the crawl space. After about 20 seconds of this new camera position, the game will transport Link back to the area right outside of the Deku Tree with his hands up. This was an Easter egg put in by the developers, and is meant to be Link putting his arms up in a successful cheer, a way of letting the player know they've successfully completed the RAM manipulation. Next, the player wants to leave that area and keep rolling directly up. Eventually, the game will crash, though due to the developers feeling bad for the players, they spliced in the ending credits as a failsafe. This ends the any % no ace Ocarina of Time speedrun. Or does it? We never got into SRM, the separate reality manifestation technique. Well, watching the run, you actually saw it in play earlier, when Link was transported from the rock back to near the Deku Tree. How did this work though, and what actually happened? To answer that, we need to talk about parallel universes. So Link's position is a floating point number, but it's converted to a short when the game uses it to test for collision with floor triangles. In other words, Link's position can basically be any decimal number, but it's converted to an integer between negative 32,768 and positive 32,767 inclusive. So, any fractional portion is truncated, and numbers too big or too small are moved into this range, using the modulo operator. Graphically, that means that the position used for floor detection is always inside of this box, so if Link's in the box, then his actual position and the position used for floor detection are the same, albeit maybe off by a small fraction due to the truncation. But if Link leaves that box, then his actual position and the position used for floor detection will separate, since the position used for floor detection will just loop back around to remain in the original box. So now I ask you, here's the course. So if Link is standing way over here, where there's no land, but the position used for floor detection is on land, can he stand over here? The answer is yes. As far as the game sees it, Link is, in fact, above land over here, because the game actually checks for land over here. So for all intents and purposes, there is essentially land over here, a copy of the original map. And this is what we call a parallel universe, or a PU, and this applies to every one of these boxes. So there's actually a grid of nearly infinite parallel universes. Here is a to-scale diagram of the PU grid. As you can see, the PUs are actually pretty far apart, but I'll be taking some creative liberties and drawing them closer together for the sake of clearer visuals. Now, PUs aren't as glamorous as you might think. The N64 console will actually crash if you go to a PU and let the camera follow you, but luckily we can avoid that crash by fixing the camera in place on the original map before leaving it, which we set up by hitting the rock after setting up for the separate reality manifestation. Once reaching the parallel universe, Link appears to be transported over to the area near the Deku Tree, though he's actually in a separate plane of existence to begin with, hence the name Separate Reality Manifestation. This is what allows the player to enter into a separate reality where the credits are spliced in directly by the developers, resulting in the current, quickest, any % no ace route in Ocarina of Time to date. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys learned something interesting today, and maybe even grew an interest in speedrunning and its deeply developed routing and techniques. If there are any other speedruns you'd like to see an explanation for, feel free to leave a comment below with the run you want explained, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.